Right now with us on Tennis Channel Inside In, my honor indeed to talk to a mainstay on the Pro Tour for a while, a pioneer and a champion. In 2016, she's most known for becoming Puerto Rico's first singles champion in any sport in the Olympics, the gold medalist Monica Puig. Monica, thanks for joining the show.
No, thanks so much for having me.
I don't use that word pioneer loosely. Like it's it's very rare to get that esteem, but no, it's been a while since then. I kind of wanted to go through a bunch of your career and everything that's happened. But first off, how's this transition been now that you've had like a solid year of not competing anymore, staying busy, which we'll get to, but not being an active tennis player? How's the transition?
It's up and down, to be honest. There are days where I'm really, really sad that I'm not playing, and, days where I have those moments where I'm just really down. But, I'm getting used to life in general. One thing that I really did not realize that I enjoyed very much was being at home, being with my husband, being with my dogs. It's just something different that I haven't been able to experience for many years. So that definitely makes those harder days a lot easier to deal with.
So I want to get into your backstory because the Puerto Rican side, I think your dad's Cuban, right? Cuban American. So
Yep.
You had ties to the Miami area. In 2016, I was actually at Indian Wells, and I saw you play a tough match against Kazakhina.
Oh,
it was on court 3, a night match. But and not to bring up bad memories, but what I remember is the crowd support was pretty legit, and I think that might just be a Puerto Rican culture thing, but also for some of these countries that don't have much in terms of lineage. We're kind of seeing that with Poland and Iga. They were out in droves supporting you. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way, but that support kind of stayed in just about your entire career, having that Puerto Rican love.
Yeah, no, it was really great. And the good thing is that I found Puerto Ricans in all corners of the world. So whether I was in China, Japan, there was always a Puerto Rican in the crowd. And that was always really good, especially when I'm playing in countries where, you feel a little bit more lonely, whether it's, in the Middle East or in China, Asia, and all of that stuff. When you have that warmth and that crowd that's backing you, it's really cool. And obviously, Miami was a huge tournament for that. New York, there's plenty of Puerto Ricans there as well. So it's always nice to have that support.
So what's your tennis origin story? Did you have anyone in the family that played?
Yeah. So actually my mom played when she was in high school, growing up. My dad, continues to play recreationally. He plays maybe 2 or 3 times a week. But my mom was the one who gave me my first tennis racket. I was a little bit of my brother's shadow growing up. I have an older brother by 3 years. And whatever he did, I wanted to do as well. Didn't really have an identity yet. Didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mom kind of gave me the racket. And I just started taking clinics. I really liked it. And that just kind of built itself up from there.
Was it always tennis? Were there other sports, or was that just the one?
I mean, I danced for a little while, did ballet and tap and stuff like all these young girls do at some point in time. It's really cute with the little tutus and stuff. But my mom, once they started, with the makeup, my mom was like, 6 years old is a little bit too young for a full face of makeup, which is, very fair. But I like to be outside. I like to be active. I was like, I wouldn't say like a tomboy, but I definitely did enjoy being outside and running around.
There's always these moments in like any pro career, any success story where it's like the crossroads, the fork in the road moment. And I think for yours, the one that struck me was your school. You've been open about like the upbringing, Catholic, and how important faith was for you. But they actually said that they would encourage you to specialize and to homeschool. Yeah. I don't think, and that's overrated how like many people would not do that. Like a lot of schools would not say, hey, it'd be in your best interest, but that selfless act kind of spurned your whole career.
Absolutely. And it was more the principal of the school. We had formed a very good bond. I saw her as kind of like another, like my fairy godmother in a way. I would arrive to school early because my brother's school was a little bit further away than mine. So, I would arrive at the school like at 7:15, sit outside her office. She would take me into her office and we would just chat about tennis and how my studies were going and things like that. And then, private school, Catholic school, you're only allowed to miss a certain amount of days. And, I was coming up on those days quite often. There were assignments that I needed to do, and it needed to be fair for the rest of the class as well. And, I remember the principal sat my parents down and said, hey, do you think she can actually do this? Like as a good thing, because you guys should invest in it then and put her in homeschool so she can dedicate most of her time to tennis and to developing her craft. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow. That's very impressive and very powerful stuff. And what was it like when you went back after being a gold medal champion?
Oh, it's so cool. Because she was still the principal, who was the principal at the time. She went back to work as a kindergarten teacher because she loved that one-on-one with younger kids. And we were able to do a small little feature with her and the new principal, who is actually, who was my third grade teacher. So it was really cool to go back and see the classrooms and live those experiences and kind of just be there at a place that held so many great memories for me growing up.
Were there moments, I mean, I guess that's also freeing that you were able to do this, but were there moments where you felt the pressure kind of mounting? Because now you're going into full-time tennis and you're better than everyone at a certain age, but then the higher you go up, the more rare those opportunities just dominate become. When did the moment feel real?
I mean, the pressure wasn't that big. To be honest, the thing that affected me the most was getting my studies done on time, because I dedicated most of my life to tennis and most of my time. And I was the type of person that when I had off time, I really liked to rest. I liked to watch movies, kind of let my mind unplug. So when it came actually time to finish, my year of schooling, I would always need to pay for an extension. And as much as I didn't want to do that, and my mom was like, Monica, please, can you finish on time? Sometimes it didn't work because, you have to pay for internet some places in France and, in Europe, and you only get, it was like 15 euros for 2 hours, and you're like, oh. So, I mean, it was that was the only pressure on me, but I felt like once I graduated high school, the pressure lifted, and that's when I started having some of my best results, and that's when I actually started having more success on tour. So it worked for me once I had more time to kind of free my mind instead of needing to meet all these deadlines.
Did you have any real sporting idols? I mean, I know Puerto Rico has a rich athletic history. You look at the names, like current day, even with like Frankie Lindor and the Almore brothers before him, and Felix Trinidad, the boxer. There aren't that many women on that list. So you were kind of one of the first to kind of get mainstream appeal there. Did you have idols that you looked up to?
Well, I mean, in the tennis world, I definitely did. I grew up watching Serena and Venus Williams. I had posters of Jennifer Capriati, Monica Seles on my walls growing up. I lived in Miami, so when it was called the Sony Ericsson Open and all of these things, I was just very interested in being on those courts. And one of the coolest memories that I have was actually going to the Miami Open tournament with my dad many times, watching the qualifying and watching the main draw, and telling my dad, one day I'm going to be on these practice courts and I'm going to be practicing right here where these girls are.
Yeah.
And fast forward, 15 years later or so, my dad is watching me practice and he's right there in the stands watching me on those same courts. So it's really cool just to see how things have moved forward pretty much.
I think this is you in the 2012 Australian Open, a lifetime ago.
Jesus.
Trying to, I mean, that's a determined person. They're trying to make their way up the tour. And what I remembered in kind of studying your upbringing, uprising, was it wasn't this like smooth sailing, like everybody just keeps winning and everyone wants to be like Carlos Alcaraz and just ride all the way to the top. But in your case, there was some checkpoints, but also some adversity. How did you feel adjusting to the pro game for the first time?
It was really tough because I always saw myself as like the last one to get to everything. So I was the last one to kind of make it from the junior days up to where I was, the last one to kind of show up for everything. So it took me a little bit of time. It was, a big adjustment for me. However, once I did finally understand and I understood that, no path to success is alike. So I had to understand that, kind of be patient with myself. But my junior career ended on a high in pretty much the last 6 or 7 months that I was a junior, and it kind of clicked and made sense for me. And the same thing happened in the pros where, struggling to make it inside the top 100 for so long, and all of a sudden it just happened.
Did you feel like you were, I guess, was there camaraderie on the WTA? It seems like you made some good friends. I know you and Bethany Maddox-Sands were always, thick as thieves on Twitter, at least. But the locker room seemed like it was a good place for your generation coming up.
Absolutely. And I felt like it was kind of, it pushed us to kind of strive for, to be better than the other one. I know Svitolina and Caroline Garcia and that type of generation that played with me in juniors, they had a lot of success very early on. And I wanted to be there. Obviously, it took me more time and it was a little bit tougher. But I eventually got there, and that was a cool thing. So it was kind of like that you see somebody's doing well, that pushes you to work a little bit harder, be a little bit better. And that was what I feel like our generation definitely did well.
More with Monica Puig here on Tennis Channel Inside In. Well, all roads in your story lead to the Rio Olympics in 2016. Now, did you have any idea going in that this was no? Because I saw the post where you were like off to a great start. This like winning one match meant so much to you, which is so cool. But then to end the gold medal is just storybook stuff. When did, I guess, ask a better way, when did it start to feel like a real possibility? Because you went through some of the best WTA players in the world.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I was just happy to be there. Qualifying for the Olympics was something that I didn't even know I had done until somebody actually told me. So I needed to make the third round of the French Open that year, and I was unaware. My team knew, kept it quiet, and then I ended up beating Julia Gergis. I think it was like 7-5 in the third.
I remember that match. I had no idea that was. So you didn't know the stakes until after the match was over. Because if I remember correctly, you had a pretty emotional reaction just to notch that win. Wow.
I think the reaction was just being 3 hours on court. The game before the match ended, the supervisor came and told the chair umpire, we are going to suspend to darkness after this game, no matter what happens. So I was like, okay, Monica, you need to get your butt in gear because I do not want to come back and have to do this whole thing because that's very challenging. But then when I got off the court, my team told me, like, did you know that this was like, I was like, okay, thanks guys for keeping it quiet because if not, I would have been a nervous wreck. So it was great. But yeah, getting to the Olympics was surreal. I wanted to enjoy the moment and kind of live that experience because I've heard so many stories of what the Olympics could be. So very happy to be there. Obviously very nervous before my debut. I just wanted to, start on the right foot. And I'd been playing well that year. I was 34 in the world, 37 or 34. So good results, finals of Sydney, semifinals in Eastbourne and a couple of other tournaments I was doing pretty well. But then when I beat Garbine, in the third round, that's when I was like, okay, I think I need to start reevaluating my priorities here because I am playing too well to not give myself or be lenient with myself and say, hey, you do have a chance.
Right.
I was always kind of counting myself out until that point.
It was an impressive run because you beat Garbini, Kvitova, and then Kerber in the final round. You're up 5-1 in the third set. Is that the nervous you've ever been in your life?
Yeah, well, I actually had a match point at 5-0. And I keep saying this, the whole third set, I was singing a song in my head, just kind of, we had a playlist within the Puerto Rican Olympic team that, it was all Latin songs, whatever was on in the moment that kind of made us feel good. We would listen to that playlist all the time. So it was one of the songs on that playlist. I think it was a Shakira song. And I was just singing that song. So kind of, I was in the zone without really knowing what was going on and kind of going on autopilot, playing the type of tennis that is very basic. I know what I'm doing. I'm reacting to everything on the court, but just flowing. I didn't really need to think really hard about things and kind of bursted that bubble when I was match point. I was like, wait a minute, what is going on? And kind of, it was a struggle to remember what tennis was supposed to be like. I was like, how do I play? What do I do? Do I even know how to play tennis at this point?
Is it like an out-of-body experience?
Everything shut down for me. Like, I just felt so tight and nervous. But in that moment, I was like, okay, I got here doing something and something was working. I just need to kind of do that.
Beating Kerber in the middle of one of the better years in WTA 21st century, like it was insane. And what I love about the match point reaction is you haven't even waited for the ball to hit the ground. Like the racket's already up and it's already just
it was
emotions.
Insane. I think that was like the most tense moment because the ball just felt like it was going in slow motion out. And I was like, okay, come on, just like go out because I know I'm like right there. It's over. But it was really cool because I think she had 5 break points, I had 6 match points or vice versa. And it was a great moment.
That seems like it would be from the outside, just a life-changing, altering thing. Did it feel just, I mean, I'm sure surreal, probably still feels surreal, but when did you know, okay, like this changed, like I'm an Olympic gold medalist for the rest of my life?
I don't think like it's still real to me that that's the title. I mean, I've heard it several times, and sometimes it's hard to believe because, I wish my career would have extended itself a little bit more to have more opportunity to have better results. But it was really just a dream come true. I remember that night after winning, I would wake up every like 30 minutes to touch the medal on the nightstand because, sometimes you have these incredible dreams and something coming true, like winning something big, and you wake up and you're like, okay, well, I'm in my bed. I'm not where I was dreaming I was. So that's a bit of a shame. But just having the medal there and just being like, wow, okay, it did happen.
And the anthem, has to be the part where it really sets in because you're still, I would imagine, riding that high from any big match win with the adrenaline going. But when you stop, hear your anthem come on last, it's just got to be.
Yeah, it was. I can't listen to the Puerto Rican national anthem without crying anymore because it's just. It was the first time that any Puerto Rican had ever heard it on an Olympic podium. Yeah. So the island was also going crazy.
You saw those videos, right?
I
of all
did.
The watch parties.
Yeah, my agent showed me just after that moment right there, and he's like, "Do you have any idea what is going on back home?" Yeah. And I said, "No, what's going on?" He hands me his phone. He's like, "You need to look at this."
Who were some of the people that reached out to you? Anybody that made you blush? Like, I can't believe this person just congratulated me.
Yeah, it was J-Lo had wrote a tweet, and Ricky Martin, of course. We go way back from when I was like 16 years old that we met for the first time, and just all of Puerto Rico. But for me, it was more about my parents in that moment. Yeah. They were the first people who I tried to call as soon as the match was over because we have 7 minutes from when we walk off the court to getting the medal. So I was trying to change into my tracksuit and trying to call my parents, but since there's so many people in the stadium, I couldn't get a signal, so I was really upset. But once I was able to talk to them, that was really the best moment that I've ever had.
When you talk about this parade, I'm thinking about it from the perspective of just all the young people in the crowd that got to actually see a champion in the flesh. You've got your mom up there. You've got a lot of people that support you. It strikes me as the inspirational story because nobody had this example before you. Now, when you interact with children, do you get that sense that you're like kind of become the role model, that they have dreams that might not have seemed possible until someone actually did it?
Of course. And that's something that I always hold in my mind day to day, that I am an example for so many. But not just that, but for little kids. So my image is something that I always try and maintain and keep it clean and positive because, you want to do all the right things so that the future generation can come up and kind of continue to emulate these good things. And that moment for me was just incredible, seeing how many people were just there and how proud they were and everything that went on. And it was
Seems like it was
stunning.
A good day. Seems like it was hard to fit into one day.
We were dead by the end of the day, and it was incredible because it was so hot, and I was in jeans, and we were all in like jeans, and our shirt was like much heavier material. So every time the bus would pass over a tree, we were all like, "Oh, shade." But it was such a beautiful day there in Puerto Rico. It was so hot, and it was fun. It was a great time.
Did you find it a little tougher to get back to the Pro Tour so fast? Like, I know everyone would trade the opportunity to win a gold medal, so it sounds like a first world problem. But going back to the grind of a Pro Tour had to be an adjustment after such an emotional high.
Yeah, it was really tough because, a lot of the other athletes that are not in tennis said, okay, so you're going to take a break after this. I was like, well, I have the U.S. Open in 2.5 weeks, so no. I did pull out of Cincinnati, which was the next week, and it was important for me to do that because this is the biggest win of my career. This is the biggest thing that had ever happened to me, and I needed kind of time to process that, but it wasn't enough time. And going back to the U.S. Open after everything that had happened, I was still kind of like in a mental fog because none of it seemed real to me. And it was very challenging.
And I know this is kind of a side note, but your new career in the broadcasting world, you have that perspective of what, not on the Olympic level, but what some of these pros have in terms of following up such a moment, whether it's Iga Swiatek or even Jessie Pegula-Anceborg having these amazing career years. There's that have to follow up pressure that comes on, and you lived that moment that they're experiencing now.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a really good job of it, especially Ego. Wow, what can I say? Mentally, she's one of the strongest players out there. I feel like when I was going through that moment, the topic of mental health was not really that big. And I was really struggling a lot to kind of come to terms with everything that was happening to me, kind of feeling that pressure. And to me, a lot of people would say, if you can't handle this pressure and you can't handle what's going on right now, then you're not cut out for this. And that was the response. Nowadays, I feel like people are a little bit more understanding to the fact that we're going through all of this pressure. And it's more like, okay, well, let's get help to kind of see what you're going through and kind of analyze that in a different way. But during that period of time, tennis was always seen as, if you are the strongest person mentally out on the court, that is what makes the difference. Not the tennis, not the physicality. It was the mental side. And one really needed to be strong, and I just didn't know how at the point.
Well, it's come a long way just in those 5-6 years, how important it is, and the examples shown at the top. I think it's very few that have walked in that path and knowing how to deal with just the pressures. And I think you've also commented on what Emma Raducanu went through. And it's a gift and a curse, right? Social media can just be great to grow awareness, your brands, all that stuff. But I think you said it perfectly. You're never going to please everyone. You're not going to have 100% approval rating of fans across the board.
No, of course not. And with Emma, she became an international star in the span of 2 weeks after not even really being on the WTA tour for that long, just winning the US Open after qualifying. Nobody really knew who she was. And look, she's a very marketable girl. She has a lot of charisma. When I saw her win that US Open, she just looked like this brand new fresh face who's going to take over tennis. But, thankfully, what she did at the US Open has her set for life, so she doesn't have to worry about that. But it's also managing the expectation that comes with all of that. She has now lots of things to do with her sponsors, and people can say all well and good, hey, focus more on the tennis than you do with your sponsors, but there are certain agreements that you have with your sponsors that you cannot break. There are, commitments, there are appearances, there are photo shoots, and in order to maintain these contracts and be in the good graces with your sponsors, you have to dedicate time to that. It's just finding the perfect balance, and she's still super young, so she has to learn how to manage that with her team, and I have no doubt that she will come back. She just needs to kind of settle herself and find that comfortable balance.
Yeah, for it to happen so young in her career, to not even have a full pro season, that's where it's just insane how overwhelming it must be. And that's where, luckily we've made strides with mental health and everything. A few more things with Monica Puig here on Tennis Channel Inside In. Unfortunately, the injuries derailed the end of the career. Was it a reoccurring thing early in your career? Did you play through pain a lot, or were there moments where it kind of jolted you and then ultimately was the reason why you stopped playing?
Yeah, so I was very lucky to be injury-free for the majority of my career. And in 2019, towards the end of the season, I started having big-time discomfort on impacts in my elbow. So whether it was forehands, volleys, and primarily the serve and overheads, there was just a point where every time I would make impact with the ball, my elbow would hurt so bad. And I went to go and see a specialist and found out that I had a nerve entrapment. So 2 muscles were compressing one of my nerves in my elbow. And if I did not have that dealt with, it could have led to more permanent damage for as far as nerves are concerned. So I needed to have that taken care of. I did. That was the first time having a surgery for tennis that was going to put me out for a very, very long time. And that was very new. And then once I started coming back from that injury, my shoulder started bothering me. And whether it was compensation from, not knowing what my elbow was going to feel like. And, obviously when you come back from a surgery, there's going to be aches and pains everywhere. But my shoulder just started to get affected, and it was really tough for me to serve and to hit balls, and ended up going to a doctor and seeing what was wrong. And that was just the beginning of the end.
It's unfortunate that you weren't able to, end on your own terms. But I think the big thing is the life after tennis. And I'm hoping you seem like you're not in any real pain right now.
No.
So that's good.
No, thankfully.
Especially given all the activities you do off of tennis now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to play some tennis here and there because I would love to come back and do some exhibitions. Right. My shoulder is not 100%. After this last surgery, I decided to take a long break from doing rehab on my shoulder because it was just too mentally and emotionally painful to go back to do rehab on a shoulder that, pretty much ended my career. So I felt like, in a way, it was like, okay, I need a break. But definitely would like to come back and give my shoulder a chance to even just be out there on the courts and play a couple matches against some other players who have ended their careers and have some fun. But life away from tennis definitely does not suck. It's pretty nice, but I do miss the rush and I do miss everything else.
So did you know you wanted to be a broadcaster?
Always.
Because the ESPN stuff, starting with there, you were doing it when you weren't officially retired. You've done not only tennis stuff. I saw you at the Home Run Derby and then covering U.S. Opens and whatnot. That was something you wanted to do? You wanted to be an on-camera broadcaster?
Always, because I feel like I have a very bubbly personality and I'm not afraid to go up and talk to anybody. Sometimes you have to get me to stop talking because it's fun for me. And I love journalism. I love writing. I love learning new things about new people. So it's always been something fun for me to do and had those early opportunities. And it's just kind of escalated from there. And it's actually really cool and it's really fun. And the fact that now I'm able to look at tennis from a non-emotional side and not really care who's winning or losing, but look at tennis very objectively. I see so much more. I see so many more things in the game that I didn't see before.
Yeah, the Bad Bunny collab must have been nice.
That was cool. That was really fun because he's huge in Puerto Rico and he was there and he's actually really shy away from what he is when he's performing. So that was like, like even tennis players who put on an act, we're like two-faced. When we're on the court, we're all vicious and really intense, but then off the court, we're just normal people.
I got to ask you, because he's been on this show, what's it like working with Nick McCarville?
Oh my God. We are two peas in a pod. I really love working with Nick, and working with him at the US Open was the best because it was some really early mornings, but we jived so well and we got along and had really great chemistry. But that seems to be the thing, that when I work with people, I just want to have fun. And even with commentating, it's like sitting down and having an extended conversation on tennis. And it's what I love to do.
So, got to ask you about this. Married woman now. I'm not going to play the speeches or anything. We'll save that. But, it's a great thing, obviously. Congratulations to both of you. Do you feel like you've changed, though? Because still relatively young,
No, not really. Because Nathan and we have such a great dynamic. And we're not just husband and wife, but we're, each other's best friends. So, like, I can talk to him about anything and know that he will give me his 100% complete honesty and vice versa. We have seen each other go through many ups and downs. He was the person that I relied on the most, apart from my mom and dad, during the roughest times in my career, which were the surgeries. We were actually texting before my first ever surgery on my shoulder. So, he saw the worst of me. He saw the best of me when I was starting to come back, and it looked hopeful that I was going to restart my career, and has been the biggest support system. And we have 2 crazy dogs, and we're living a really exciting life because he's also introduced me to marathons, and we're doing our first half Ironman as well in September. So, he's introduced me to a whole new world.
So I wanted to ask you about that because the New York Marathon, which is amazing. I'm jealous of that because I like to run, but not that far. The month of your wedding is when this took place?
It was the week before our wedding. The week,
no
exactly
worries.
A week before our wedding.
No worries at all?
So, I wasn't worried, but everybody who was involved in the wedding, all of, the women in my family were like, are you crazy? What if you're not able to walk on your wedding day? I was like, you guys, I got it. It's going to be fun. And it was kind of like a bonding thing that we wanted to do together, Nathan and I. And it was really cool because he had run it before. He told me what to expect, like at every point of the run. So, I mean, and for me, I cried several times during this marathon because, the people cheering, it kind of like, it brought me back to my tennis days on when people would cheer for me on the court. And it just meant so much because it was kind of like a new beginning and something that, I could work for. And it was a really big goal that I had achieved.
So happy tears, not like... Right?
No, very happy tears. Right, I was not in pain in any way. I enjoyed every part of it. So.
Do you find that replaced like the competitiveness that you lost with not being a pro tennis player anymore, and you're working towards a goal? I mean, nothing will replace being a pro athlete, but this is that runner's high that, working out as well.
Yeah, so I'm still very competitive. I still have that competitive drive. It's just... it's something different, and I put it in my mind that I wanted to complete the 6 major marathons before the end of 2024. So they are New York, London, Boston, Berlin, Tokyo, and what was the last one? Chicago.
Wow.
So this year I am running Boston and London in the same week. So one is on a Monday, the other one's on a Sunday. And I am running Chicago as well. So 2024 would just be... Tokyo and Berlin, and a half Ironman, like I said, in Augusta in September.
Wow.
3 days before my birthday, 3 days before I turned 30, like, believe it or not. And then there's one in Puerto Rico next year in March, which I really want to do, especially since it's at home. But it's given me like a new purpose. It's given me something to work for, and I do really well when I have a goal and a vision for what I want to do.
Well, I guess that answers the are you in pain question. That's a couple marathons in a week. I mean, that's pretty good.
The shoulder is what it is. I'm going to have to learn how to swim effectively, obviously, with my shoulder still being very fragile. That's the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about. But as far as the running, there's absolutely no pain because I'm not really using my arms very much. And the cycling... it's been going well. I've been falling off my bike a lot, but that's kind of what it is when you're learning to use a whole different machine than just a bike that you can go and ride along the sidewalk with.
I mean, it's very cool that you've thrown yourself into new challenges, and especially athletes that have to retire young, there's always the worry that what are they going to do? Are they going to be bored? But it doesn't seem like that's the case at all.
No, I mean, I think I early on, I knew that I needed to find something to do. I'm very active already. And for me, it was just, what can I do that I will enjoy? And it was not just the broadcasting side, because I knew I was going to enjoy that, but I wanted to continue to be active. And it's really given me something to work for and to strive for. And honestly, it's pretty fun within the suffering I'm getting. I'm learning still how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's something I struggled with all of my career, but it seems to come easy now.
Well, it's very inspiring. Blast talking to you. This was fun. Monica Puig here on Tennis Channel Inside In. The very last question, do you see yourself involved in tennis specifically for a long time, for a lifetime even?
Absolutely, because, tennis is my life and will always be my life. So any way that I can get involved, probably not coaching on the professional level, but I definitely do enjoy working with kids. I enjoy the early development of tennis. That would be something that I'm very interested in, and helping young players, get to that next level. And that's something I'm very passionate about. But tennis will always be there.
I could see you being like, the head, having like the army of the Puerto Rican Tennis Federation in like 20 years. You just have an army of juniors.
Who knows? Maybe that might happen because, Puerto Rico is an island with lots of talent. So it's just waiting to be developed. So. Okay.
Well, we'll try to make sure if it's a 30 for 30 or there's some documentary, we'll try to have the rights here. But Monica Puig, appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was a blast talking with you. Have fun calling all the matches this week. And thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.